The story of the flood is not just a religious account, but one of the most enigmatic narratives in human history. What really happened before this great catastrophe? What has been hidden from historical records? And why do so many cultures around the world share similar myths about a global destruction event? The Bible and ancient Jewish traditions speak of a world that existed before the flood, a world that had been irreversibly corrupted. But few dare to explore the details of this dark period in human history. What caused this world to be sentenced to destruction? Who or what inhabited the earth at that time? What kind of knowledge was lost forever in the waters that swallowed entire civilizations? In this video, we will dive into the hidden accounts of pre-flood humanity. We will explore the sins, monstrosities, and unknown forces that shaped this forgotten era. If you are also curious about the mysteries of the ancient world, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. The narrative in the book of Genesis begins with the creation of humanity through Adam and Eve, followed by the multiplication of human beings and the emergence of original sin. With the mistake committed in the Garden of Eden, humanity began to face its own corruption and transgressions, which intensified over time. Even after the fall, biblical accounts describe a society that drifted further and further away from divine principles. Many of the mysteries and secrets of this period remain hidden from most people today, being investigated only by those dedicated to deep scriptural studies. In addition to biblical narratives, scholars and researchers turn to ancient Jewish writings to shed light on these events, expanding the understanding of the knowledge passed down through generations by the ancient Jews. Among the remarkable events of this period are accounts of the presence of fallen angels, demonic entities, and practices associated with magic and sorcery, highlighting the growing chaos and moral corruption of humanity. These events would ultimately lead to a scenario of such profound degradation that it resulted in the Great Flood in Noah's time, a milestone in biblical history symbolizing both divine judgment and the opportunity for a new beginning. According to the Holy Scriptures, the first lineage to inhabit the world was the descendants of Adam, which branched out among others through the lineage of Cain, marked by his transgression. Cain was a man of wicked conduct in the eyes of the Lord, and his descendants followed a path of vanity and estrangement from God. Although some of his descendants excelled as musicians, craftsmen, and masters of various skills, tradition holds that, for the most part, Cain's lineage did not serve the God of Adam. However, some scholars suggest the possibility that certain members of this lineage may have maintained their faith. The prevailing consensus, however, is that Cain's descendants inherited his transgressive nature, reflecting the cruel act of their progenitor, who committed the first murder in human history by coldly killing his brother Abel. Beyond Cain's lineage, there was also the lineage of Seth, Adam's youngest son, considered his true spiritual heir. Unlike his brother's lineage, Seth's descendants initially remained faithful to God, calling upon and glorifying his name. From this lineage arose the first prophet of humanity, Enoch, a righteous man who lived in the world before the flood. Enoch preached and prophesied against the corruption of that time, warning of the consequences of turning away from God. Although Seth's lineage maintained its purity and devotion for a long period, it eventually also succumbed to corruption, giving into sin and straying from the divine path, much like Cain's descendants. The Holy Scriptures in Genesis 6 recount that the lineages of Cain and Seth, both descendants of Adam, eventually intermingled over time. This event contributed to the increasing corruption of humanity, one of the key factors that led to the Great Flood. Now, delving into some cultural aspects of the pre-flood era, there are little-known elements about this primitive and ancient civilization. One of the most intriguing topics of this period is the question of linguistics. After all, What language was spoken by the people before the flood? The Holy Scriptures do not explicitly mention which language was used at that time. However, we know that before the construction of the Tower of Babel, the linguistic diversity we know today did not exist. According to some interpretations, the original language given to Adam was the so-called Adamic language, also referred to in the New Testament as the language of angels. This sacred language would have been used by the first human beings to communicate with each other and with God Himself. However, this language was taken away from humanity during the event at Babel, when God confused the languages of men, scattering them across the earth. From that moment on, the various languages we know today emerged, and the Adamic language was never restored to humanity, possibly because it was no longer worthy of speaking it. Thus, the original language of the first men remains shrouded in mystery, being a subject of speculation and theological studies over the centuries. Many people argue that Hebrew or even Aramaic could be the original language of humanity, but there is no biblical record, either in the Old or New Testament, that supports this theory. The truth is that the Adamic language no longer exists today. What has been preserved are the languages that emerged after the Babel event, when God confused the languages and scattered the peoples. Another little-known aspect of the pre-flood era is the remarkable longevity of human beings at that time. Unlike today, where life expectancy hovers around 100 years, often accompanied by illnesses and physical decline, back then it was common for people to live for centuries, maintaining strength and vigor for much of their lives. Biblical records indicate that some individuals reached extraordinary ages. Methuselah, the son of Enoch, is mentioned as having lived 969 years, making him the longest-lived man cited in the Scriptures. Thus, the population of that time was accustomed to a life expectancy that frequently exceeded 900 years, something unimaginable today. This exceptional robustness and resilience demonstrate how the pre-flood world was significantly different from the reality we know.